Does your child have huge outbursts over the smallest things? You might be surprised to learn that he may have executive functioning deficits. In this episode, I'm going to explain what that means, and by the end, you'll have ideas on how you can help him prevent those over-the-top reactions. Hey there, I'm Carrie Wolf-Park, your parent coach. I'm a mother of 6 and I fostered 10 children. This podcast is a space for caregivers of kids with trauma to come out of isolation and get the support they deserve, moving from surviving to thriving. Kids with trauma tend to have deficiencies in their executive functioning skills. Executive functioning is a set of mental skills that help people plan, organize, manage time, solve problems, adapt to new situations, relate to others through empathy or changing perspectives, and control our thoughts, words, and actions. The last area I just mentioned, controlling ourselves, is called inhibition control. Being upset or triggered by something happens to all of us. But most of us control ourselves by filtering out the negative talk in our head and not throwing a punch because the restaurant server mixed up our order. These types of overreactions and outbursts as a result of this deficit can end up being a minor inconvenience every so often, or they could turn into major life obstacles. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, my overall intention for this podcast is to support the healing of children with trauma and their families. My kids and I have experienced this healing, so I know what's possible. I also know that in order to get to happiness and peaceful resolve, you have to make it to happiness and peaceful resolve. In other words, it takes change. You need to deal with your current situation and make changes. So I'm offering ways of helping you better manage your child and his behaviors as stepping stones to a full healing. The effort is worth it. Know that change can happen and that your child doesn't have to be labeled or treated like a struggling, problematic child for life. It is possible for him to improve in that area and even fully heal. For now, hold that hope, no matter how small it is, and listen for actions you can take today to ease the way for your child and yourself. The 5 broad areas included in executive functioning are planning, attention, cognitive flexibility, memory, and inhibition control. I can't possibly share everything about executive functioning in this one episode. I am going to focus on inhibition control, which is the ability to emotionally regulate and to control your thoughts and your actions, like outbursts and tantrums. I want to raise awareness around some of your kids' experiences and give you some tools to help manage their impulses. Okay, let's go. I have a parent client who often says, "My head was about to explode hearing my daughter say," whatever it was that she said. She is thinking this, but keeping her cool, using her tools to calm herself. This mom is exercising her inhibition control in that moment of conversation with her teenage daughter. As parents, we have need for this all day long with our kids, while at work, while driving, and all kinds of other times. Now, take a look at your child's life and all the day-to-day tasks that she has to do that require attention, cognitive flexibility, memory, and inhibition control. Think of all the prepping kids are expected to do and all the tasks required of them before school, during school, and then after school. My kids, still at home, are all teenagers. During the school year, each morning, my kids make their own breakfast. One puts away the clean dishes from the dishwasher. They're on a rotating schedule for this chore. They each make a lunch, get that lunch from the kitchen to the backpack, pack all their school supplies, which may include PE clothes, Chromebooks, Chromebook chargers, pencils, homework to turn in, subject notebooks, charged cell phones, and sports equipment for after school. Some days there are extras like gifts for friends or teachers, fundraising money to return, and class supplies. While at school, they are expected to sit quietly at their assigned desks, pay attention, take notes, take note of every homework assignment, do in-class work when prompted, get along with the other students, be respectful to the teachers, participate in class, move from one class or activity to another, and there's plenty more expected of them. After school, they have to complete their homework assignments, pass along school notices to parents, clean out food containers from the backpack, and do chores. You can see all the opportunities for kiddos, and especially kids with executive functioning deficits, to be derailed. These are just some of the expectations of a school-aged child and areas where she can get off track. Break down your child's day into specific tasks like I just did. What's expected of her throughout a typical day? Now, if she also struggles with keeping track of her things, or remembering what to do next, or staying on task, which, by the way, are all examples of different executive functioning deficits, then you can see all the opportunities for her to struggle and quickly escalate emotionally. Acceptance is one of your best starting tools. It is what it is. It is not your fault or your child's fault. You both are going to be able to work through it. Let's take a deeper look into the child's world. In the moment, he may not be able to take a breath and try again. He may throw the Chromebook across the room if he isn't able to complete his work on time. He may yell obscenities, disrupt the class, or run off campus if he gets frustrated or stumped on anything. That was the worst phone call to get from my child's school. Your child eloped class and we don't have eyes on him anymore. Good Lord. Okay. I didn't know it was possible to cross my city in as few minutes as I did in those days. Eloping class means he ran out of class, and several times this child kept running off campus. This was grade school age, by the way. He had not yet learned to control his emotions and environment. These outbursts, or meltdowns, or tantrums, or whatever you want to call them, are how inhibition control deficits show up. One way, anyway. Of course, they could happen over trauma triggers too, which I discussed at length in episode 3. They can happen over seemingly small things and feel unpredictable. They leave us as parents feeling like we're walking on eggshells, constantly looking for ways to prevent an incident from happening so we don't have to deal with the fallout. Whew, that is such a difficult way to live. It's stressful and uses so much energy. I spent years there. And when you do it day after day, you're in full-on survival mode, just trying to make it through another day. You may feel frustrated, embarrassed, alone, sometimes hopeful, and many days discouraged. This cycle of feelings and trying to make things better becomes your life. But there is a way out. Two things have to happen. The first is you have to take care of yourself in any way you can. The second is you must support your child. Some days, taking care of yourself may be as little as putting the kids in the car and walking slowly to your door while breathing deeply. I'm not kidding. I know it sounds ridiculous if you're thriving, but if you are not thriving, you get it. That is 20 seconds of you prioritizing you. And precious moments like this allow you to come back to your center. Create space inside of yourself in order to make better decisions for yourself and your child. Taking care of yourself allows you to take care of others. The bathroom is also a great hiding place to take time for yourself and take care of yourself. Be in silence and let your nervous system rest, or have the courage to get out your emotions. If you have a trusting friend or family who can hold space for you to let down your guard, do it. At one point, I was taking private Pilates lessons 3 times each week. The instructor was my friend, and even closer friend after a couple years of all those lessons. Every so often, I laid down on her reformer table for my exercise, and I just cried. It was a safe place. I could let go of all the emotions I was carrying, and there were a lot of mixed emotions for sure. There are a lot of other ways you can take care of yourself that don't take time or money, just intention. You could meditate, pray, list things you're grateful for, read, journal, walk in nature, spend quiet time with an animal, take a bike ride, listen to music, dance, sing, garden, create art, whatever you love doing, do it for a few minutes. That is self-care. And sometimes a few minutes a day is all we can manage for ourselves. That's all right. It's a great starting point. Again, it's that intention to give back to yourself that you need to remember daily. Hey, I'm taking a moment here to thank you for listening to our podcast, Parenting Kids with Trauma. Be listening for actions you can take this week as a way to move your life forward. Also, I invite you to book a free consultation with me on our website, carriewolfpark.com. That's KARIWOLFFPARK.com. Please also subscribe and write a review. And we would love to hear your story. I want you to be heard. It's empowering. And we want to amplify these stories anonymously to others so more and more families know they are not alone. You can share your story on our website either by voice or text. Now let's get back to it. Now let's see how you can support your child, because the goal is for your child to catch herself before she escalates. A lot of kids with trauma are in therapy or have been in therapy at some point. Also, depending on the state you live in, a lot of schools have an SEL program, that's social and emotional learning, where they give dedicated time to teaching kids how to deal with their emotions and difficult social situations. In either case, align yourself with the experts. Ask them what tools they're giving your child, then use them in your family. If you are using them, your child's more likely to join in. A simple breathing technique, for example, may be one tool. Sometimes it works to have an agreement with your child that the moment you notice he is about to spin out, you remind him to breathe and do it with him. Even if you don't have that agreement, try it. Worst case is that you are calmer by your deep breathing and better situated to support him. It's really important that whoever is supporting your child while she is out of control with her mouth or actions, not take it personally. If you are the one standing in front of her while she's throwing a chair your way, it sure feels personal. I've been there. I know. And you have to remind yourself that her outburst is about her and has nothing to do with you. Same goes for staff at a daycare or school. Some are trained up and embrace this notion, but so many take it personally. I was notified once by my child's school that my child, quote, made his aide cry. What? Oh no, I'm not buying that. I clarified with the assistant principal on the call that no one person can make another person cry. There's an impact, yes, and the aide has responsibility here. That aide took my child's behavior personally. And why would she do that? Her entire function at the school was to support kids with special needs of all sorts. I would have hoped she'd be better prepared for off the wall behavior and be clear that it's about the children and not her. Sadly, it seems training is not all inclusive, and living the experience is always more intense than reading about it in a classroom. For this reason, I have trained a lot of educators who cross paths with my kids. So, if an educator is blaming the child or you, take a stand for your child and yourself and educate the educator. It's not personal. I'm thinking now about kids who mouth off and say things that they sometimes later regret because they were unable to control their negative thoughts and words. And to be honest, some kids may not regret their mean words because a lack of empathy is another example of an executive functioning deficit. I'm sure we all know people who spout off some shocking words. We might think, whoa, they don't have a filter. I have several friends that come to mind that I have said that about. This is similar. Again, prepare the adults working with your child if this is a common problem. It gets more complicated when your child blurts out hurtful words to another child. Kids don't readily understand that something might be going on for your child and not take her words personally. Kids tend to be literal and live in the moment. You may end up having a lot of conversations with other parents, cleaning up the mess your child left with theirs. This can be a great opportunity for the other family to empathize. Follow your instincts with regard to what you share about your child. And, of course, don't throw your child under the bus. There are skillful words and there are unskillful words. In episode 2 of this podcast, I talk about how we talk about our kids. I basically expect that whatever I tell another parent about my child will make its way to their child. So I am very careful with my words and what I share. Depending on your child's age, you may be able to support him to do the cleanup himself with his friend. This is the best for all involved when it can happen successfully. You know, kids who struggle in this area aren't necessarily out of control 100% of the time. When they do exhibit control, it takes a lot of energy. You may see your child handle a trauma trigger with grace in the morning and then blow up all afternoon whenever anything upsets her. I experienced 2 opposite extremes, and both are common. One of my kids was great all through school and even into his after-school program. All the adults saw his true heart. They saw him as kind, funny, and generous. But it took all he had to keep his emotions regulated for 10 hours, and then he lost it at home every night. And for a while, his behaviors were quite extreme. It was a safe place for him because he knew I loved him and was not going to leave him. And the opposite happened with another child. He was loving and compliant and gentle with me at home, and at school often triggered and anxious with very little inhibition control. I was called down to the school urgently, on average about twice weekly, to help him regulate his emotions and come back from his trauma. What I mean by this is that he'd sort of go away mentally. He wasn't present. He was triggered and mentally taken back to the feelings he had during the traumatic incident. I was the only person that he trusted in these situations, so I was the only one who could calm him down. Eventually, he was assigned an aide at school who was like his guardian angel for a couple years. She was so amazing. She could see him on the verge and often keep him grounded so he didn't spin out. Or she was able to call me and I could help keep him regulated on a phone call. The point being, just because your child can actually control himself at times doesn't mean he can all the time. Give him grace and trust he's doing the best he can. I often imagine how terrible it must be for the child in that moment, None of us like the feeling of being so angry or scared that we're out of control or close to it. Imagine that's what's happening for your child. It must be agonizing. I want to say a word about judging. People judge. It's what we do as humans. I'm thinking back 25 years to taking my oldest two daughters to the playground and seeing kids melting down and screaming and carrying on. My kids weren't acting like that there, and I know I was judging those parents. I'm sure I had random thoughts like how spoiled the kid must be, or wondering if the parent brought the child instead of keeping them home for a nap, or whatever. I wasn't aware of judging at the time, but upon reflection, I know I was. Fast forward 15 years, and I was that mom at the park, carrying my screaming, melting child out of the park under my arm like a life-size football with 3 other kids in tow. I saw the glares and raised eyebrows, lots of staring. I had to put metaphorical blinders on and keep marching onward. Of course, not all parents judge. I remember once carrying one child, completely in his trauma, out of a park with the other children scrambling behind, and I apparently dropped my car keys. This was a park where kids get to build things with like wood and tools and paint. It's a super cool place. The parking lot is a trek from the entrance, and it's all dirt. Once I got all the kids to the car and discovered I didn't have my keys, my heart sank. I had a tight grip on this child because he was ready to bolt, and we were in a city far from our house and near an open body of water. And I now have to go back with all 4 kids? Ugh. I turned and we were heading back. The 3 kids and I were scouring the ground looking for my keys. About halfway back, a woman came running toward me with my keys, saying she found them in the park, saw me struggling with the kids, and figured they might be mine. I was so grateful. I didn't feel any judgment from her. She looked happy to be able to help me in this way. These are the gems you want to look for and be grateful for. The knowing smiles in the grocery store, your friends who check in on you just because they're thinking about you. These are gifts. Lock on to them and any other support you find. You and your child are not alone. Remember to take care of yourself, and it will help you care for your child better. Any step, no matter how small, you take for you and your child is a step forward. I'm going to leave you with a list of some ways you can support your child with inhibition control deficits. Deep breaths. Control the environment. Decrease distractions. Get the child in small classrooms when possible. Eat at home rather than restaurants. Do what it takes to reduce the stimulants in your child's space. Engage in mindfulness. Meditation and prayers have been shown to reduce impulsive behavior. Have music handy when your child knows it will calm her. Minimize trauma triggers. Go back to episode 3 of our podcast for specific ideas, like using headphones to control sound. Remind your child to pause before speaking or acting. Give your child structured breaks throughout a day to prevent escalation. Ensure your child gets physical exercise on a regular basis. Educate the educators when needed. Remember, it is what it is, and it's not personal. Practice acceptance and keeping the disorder in perspective. Celebrate successes, no matter how small they are. Okay, I hope you have found this information helpful and choose to commit to making changes starting today. If this podcast resonated with you, I invite you to share it with a friend. Please also follow our podcast and subscribe on our website, KWP.com. That's KARIWOLFFPARK.com. Also on our site, you can tell us what you got from this episode and what else you want to hear about. And we really want to hear your story. Reach out on our website and share, either in voice or text. We want you to feel heard because it's empowering. And we want to share anonymously with others what happens in other families so everyone knows that no one is alone in this. I look forward to connecting with you next time.